You're listening to the Sis You Can Do This podcast, and we are your hosts, Roshana
and Melissa. We're faith-driven women who hope to share with you all things lifestyle, wellness, purpose, and of course, Jesus. Thanks in advance for listening.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sis You Can Do This podcast. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Melissa, how's it going over there, girl?
Hello. It's going well. We are moving into 2025. We're moving along in 2025, I should say. So all's good.
All's good. Good. Mm-hmm. Glad to hear that because we have an interesting topic today.
Yeah.
I'm hopefully going to use my words correctly and hopefully no one gets offended and doesn't leave mid-episode.
Over here. No.
Yes, we do everything in love.
Yeah.
But I want to touch on something that, and like I said, hopefully using the right words, but I want to talk about loving difficult people.
Or challenging people with challenging personalities. There we go.
Difficult.
Right.
Okay, so let's get right into it today. So being labeled as a difficult or challenging.
You're going to emphasize it.
I'm going to say difficult because that's exactly what they are. Right. Person can mean different things to different people. Mm-hmm. Now, it might be used to describe someone who's stubborn,
right,
uncooperative, resistant to change. It could also refer to someone who is hard to please,
right,
or who has very high standards or expectations. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to also say this. We have all been that difficult person. I'm the first to say
We've had difficult moments, all of us.
Yeah. Right. So we're not sitting here like, never been me, never been us. It doesn't happen. No, I can identify many times in my life where I've probably been the challenging person to work with. So I'm not sitting here like I've never, but I do want to talk about it because I think there's ways we can maneuver or, help ourselves if we ever encounter these people. Because we encounter them
every day.
Everywhere we go.
Every day. Everywhere. Yes.
Right? And maybe you're sitting there like, no, it's not me. Or, no, I've never ran into. Okay, well, let's get an example.
If you've never ran into me, then you're probably the difficult person, right?
Anyway.
Come on, somebody.
So the example that I have is maybe, we all know that person who's never satisfied every time they go out to eat. They find an issue.
I don't like that person because then my food gets spat in.
Right.
Because you're complaining.
Or I can't enjoy my meal because you're not enjoying your meal.
Right.
So I can't be like, it's so good. And
we're just going to go out for ice cream.
Right. But you might find a problem with ice cream.
Right.
So they find an issue with the meal and they have it returned to the kitchen. And I'm not saying there are those times where, there's a mishap with the food and it has to go back. I'm talking about the person who has a track record, who's consistently homegirl or homeboy is going out and he get that steak being sent back. He get the mashed potatoes is being sent back. He get everywhere you go. They have that track record.
Just let the waiter know my food is perfect, sir. We're good. Thank you.
Or there's another example, someone who's never open to suggestion. They find something wrong with everything with other people's opinions every single time. And they have that kind of my way or the highway type of attitude.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm going with this. So hopefully that kind of broke it down as to what I meant. So my first question for you is, have you ever loved or liked someone who you would classify, and I would say most times they don't see themselves as this, as we've kind of already said, as being difficult according to that description? And if so, how did you navigate through that situation, if you can share?
Yeah, of course, because as you said, we all have dealt with difficult people, and at some points in our lives, we've been the difficult person. So for me, it can be a challenge because I think I'm, for the most part, an agreeable person, depending on the context. In most settings, I'm agreeable, so I'm not going to be the person sending anything back to the kitchen unless I really have to. And I don't believe I come off as difficult around, different settings, different situations. So it does make me a little uncomfortable. I did one of those tests way back, probably in college, that kind of showed you who you were in your group, like group dynamics. And I was the harmonizer.
Oh, okay.
And that makes absolute sense. Like, I'm the person who wants
harmony.
Right. I want people to get along, and I want to get along kind of with everyone. And I mean, that can borderline be people pleasing. We'll talk about that in another episode.
Right.
So essentially, I like the harmony and the peace. So when there's someone who comes into the space that is just has no, does not want to be peaceful.
Yeah, they don't care about peace.
Right. Not at all. It makes me uncomfortable. And there was a moment in life that I was either, it's one of two things. Either I lash out, usually when it's a stranger. That's when I lash out because I'm just like, I don't have to see you tomorrow. I can get crazy. Right. Right. But if it's with somebody that I do know, then I get silent. So, you know, when I'm not saying anything, be scared. Like Melissa's she's in her mind thinking about something, you know, and I kind of go into solitude, you know, if I'm ever hurt or offended. So now I think for the most part, I realize that when you kind of unravel or peel back difficult people, as we call it, there's usually something there's usually something there, right? Whether it be misdirected feelings, unhealed trauma with a lot of folk, and as we know, spiritual things. Right. It's just like your granny was this, your mama was this, and here you are. Yeah. You know, so there are other things at play. And I think from a Christian context, you have to come from a place of compassion. It's just like, that you really are just hurt. Your feelings are hurt about something. And, you know, in this moment, I'm triggering you. Right. And just kind of looking at it from that perspective. And I think when you do it from that perspective, then you'll have a little bit more patience. You'll have a little bit more grace. You'll create the healthy boundary for yourself, you know, and you'll respond appropriately because you're just like, oh, this isn't you. This is something that you haven't healed from. This is some demon following your whole space. Yeah. You know, and as a Christian, I have to understand what's going on or discern what's going on, pray for you on my own time, you know, and just and try to work with you in the moment. So that's how I've been trying to. I don't always get that right. There's sometimes I'm just lashing out. You know, there's sometimes I get quiet, but for the most part, it's trying to just understand what's really at play. You know?
No, that's good. I you know, like to do the kill them with kindness approach almost.
Yeah, that's good too.
Especially when it's like you mentioned, maybe those that are not as close, maybe it's more in a working environment versus, you know, a home environment or someone within my personal circle. Because I do believe, like, if you are a close friend of mine, I can, like, hey, like, is everything... You start doing that deep dive. Like, is everything okay?
You've done that to me a couple of times, and I appreciate it now.
Well, you just have to ask, is everything okay? Because we could be going through just a bad day or even a bad season, right?
Right.
And it's causing our outlook on life to be a little bit skewed, or we're not seeing where we're kind of just, you know, we're making things a little bit more challenging.
Right.
Yeah, you know, same thing. Like, there's people that are of authority above me, and that's in my workplace too. And I can't just go to someone and say what I really want to say.
Right.
So we're just gonna take the kindness. We're gonna take the kindness approach, and we're gonna stay silent with the, you know. But most of the time, we're gonna pray. We're gonna pray for them and for me, for myself,
and also in addition to that, just establishing the healthy boundaries, you know, to protect yourself, setting the healthy boundaries to protect your own well-being. And practicing patience. I mean,
that's good.
It's a fruit of the spirit, right? We have to be patient, you know, and sometimes God gives us those situations so that we can practice that. So
that's good.
Yeah.
And, you know, as we're addressing the topic, I like to always say, like, what does the Bible say about this? Because the Bible has something for everything that we go through. Right. And, you know, we are commanded to love our neighbors, as ourselves. And that's after the first commandment, to love the Lord God with our heart, soul, and mind. So, you know, people are important to Jesus. We know this, and our treatment towards them is just as important to him.
Right.
Second commandment, right? To love them as we love ourselves. And it's funny, I was thinking about this, and I was just like, you know, Jesus dealt with difficult people.
All time, all day.
Let's talk about the Pharisees for a second, you know, very religious. In my books would be difficult people. They saw things one way according to the law, and they had issues with everything Jesus was trying to do.
They were looking for reasons to, you know, to put him out there, to embarrass him and all of that. So and that was constant, because he was walking around and these people were
minding
always
his business, and they were up in his business.
They were always there.
Always there.
That's a word too. They're always there.
Oh, right. And Jesus' response was to lovingly correct them, you know, whether it was through parables or simply doing as his Father commanded him. And I think, you know, if we want the ultimate example, what would Jesus do? what did Jesus do?
Right.
Right. And just to throw out some scriptures, I have quite a few today, but it's John 15:10-12. It says, if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. And I'm like, Lord, sometimes it's so hard.
It's so hard to love this person who really doesn't like you that much.
Right. And or it just doesn't want to be loved. Or maybe they need love.
Right.
And
it's really a wanting for love, usually.
And sometimes I just want to be like, do you need a hug?
And then they'll swing at you.
Right.
Because how dare you try to give me what I really need.
Right. Or look at me like I'm half crazy. But sometimes they just need a hug. But I think about this and I'm like, okay, Lord, let me not walk in disobedience.
Right.
But let me love this person or these people, right? Romans 12:10 says, love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Mm-hmm. So not just with affection, but genuine. So don't even be fake about it.
Right.
Like
that's the worst.
Yeah.
And then, and the thing is, it's easier said than done, because there are people who are interesting. And I'm just like, God, help me to love this person. Help me to love this person. And it just never feels, at first, it doesn't feel authentic. And I think I heard, I think it was John Bevere who had said there was somebody who there was an issue with, and he was always just like, God, help me to love this person. Help me to pray for this person. And he kept on doing it, even though he just didn't want to. Mm-hmm. And at some point, he's just like, no, I should pray for him. And it's this weird thing that turns into, I really don't like this person, to, okay, I think I'm learning how to love the person the way that, or see the person the way that God sees the person. Right. And I think that's what it is. So even when it feels uncomfortable to pray for them, to speak to them, all of that, just keep on doing it. And at some point, God's gonna hopefully shift it into something where you can see, what, this person is my child, right? And I need you to love me first, and then I need you to love others. And this is a part of that.
And I find it funny that those people that were like, God, just help me with them, they're the ones that usually gravitate towards you. And you're just like, but why?
You want to have lunch with me?
But I do believe it is God, the God in us, the Jesus in us. And all the more then it's in those times to ask God, okay, just as John Bevere, like, help me see them as you see them. Recognize that they are yours. Yeah. And there's a reason why they are gravitating towards me, because you want me to say something to them. You have a word from them. Right. And I need to share that word and to kind of put aside those feelings so that the message comes across and that they encounter God in a way that they probably wouldn't otherwise, right? So that's important. Okay, here's another one for us. Ephesians 4:2. Be always humble, gentle, and patient. Show your love by being tolerant with one another.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's just that when we have these difficult people, what it's supposed to bring out of us is humility. It's just that it's not about me. It's not necessarily about what I'm feeling in this moment. It's about, there's a command and I have to follow it. Like God said, to love me and then love others. Like that's it. That's what it all comes down to. So and these words, they just float on the page. But when you try to walk it out in real life, it's just like, you want me to be humble and this person is in my face. Like what?
Constantly. Yeah.
You want me to be gentle when this person just keeps on, itching at me. And it's just like, yes, I do want you to be humble, gentle, and patient. Yeah. It's very clear, in all of it. And I mean, as I said, easier said than done. But I mean, I think that it's a big part of the refining process of every Christian. It's just that he had to be humble in the face of all of that. He had to be humble on the cross. Absolutely. He had to be gentle with people. He had to say, Father, forgive them, for they know. Like, he had to be in that position. And it's just like, if you're going to follow me, then I need you to be that sacrificial, to be sacrificial as well,
That's good. Ephesians 4:31-32 says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tenderhearted, giving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. That's a
it
heavy
just
one.
be easy on the page, don't it?
Yeah. We see that side. We both took a
Right.
side like, okay, God.
Right.
Okay, God, because it's funny, like sometimes Elias, my son, will go through things and, paraphrasing, but we always say, like, do you repay evil with evil? Or do you repay evil with good? And we're trying to teach him that although someone might be evil towards you or what you consider evil, our call as Christians is not to respond back with evil behavior, according to this word, but to be good towards them. And they might not understand, or maybe they're expecting that evil to be in return.
Right.
And what a way it can change a scenario or shift something.
When you're calm and you're kind.
Exactly.
And
as we know, we're not wrestling against flesh and blood. A lot of it is a spirit. There's something spiritually happening
behind it. Yeah.
And what a way as believers who believe in spiritual things, that believe in the power of the Holy Spirit, to then have a spiritual response to this situation. And many people are looking for that. Okay, I did this to you. You're going to come back to me 10 times stronger. And when you just have a different response, it can really change the whole entire outcome.
Right.
Of the situation. I'm a strong believer. Like, as much as it's like our flesh, that human nature is like, nah, I'm gonna get you. I'm coming for you. This is what is owed.
Watch your back.
Watch you.
Right.
Listen. Right. We're not called to be that way. We are called to be different. We're called to respond different. And I love how God always throws in that forgiving piece.
Right. It's always
that I am forgiving you.
Right.
So therefore, you must forgive others.
It's a lot. I mean, because even with the bitterness, I look at bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and I think to myself, when I'm faced with those things, bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and the expectation is that I'm supposed to just be like, okay, be kind in situations like that, turn the other cheek. And it's just, man, like in real time, it's so hard.
So hard.
It's so difficult to, take it. And I don't know if it is, this may be Christian growth. I've gone through something recently where I got some bitterness, rage, anger, and harsh words. And I wasn't angry back. It was more, I was sad. I was sad for the person. It's just like, wow, what are they going through? To make them want to do all of that. And it was a sadness leading into compassion, but at the same time there were moments where I was hurt and offended, and it's just this plethora of feelings, this medicine cabinet of feelings that I'm trying to process, but at the same time just understanding that no, I'm in a position where I know Christ for real, so I can't retaliate. Like that's not the answer. That's never the answer. But It's really not the answer when you're a believer. So it's just, it's just interesting that the Bible just highlights everything.
Everything. So I have a couple more. So Matthew 5:44. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you.
Yeah. Pray for those who I've been praying.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, bless them, Lord. Give them everything that they need, Lord. Let them see your love and feel your love. And sometimes I don't want to pray that. Sometimes I'm just like, God, if you could just show
remove this person.
Show them that they're wrong, Lord. If you could, and that's the prayer that I want to pray. That's what my flesh wants to do. But it's, it's the bless them, keep them, convict them if necessary, but refine them in this process. And it's just very mature that I don't want to be.
Look at you. Growth.
I'm out
2025.
Here. Yeah, girl.
All right. Here. Romans 12:18. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone.
That's all I want to do.
I want peace for 2025.
I am the harmonizer. I'm just like, everybody calm down. That's what I want to do, but other people don't want to do that.
They don't want to do that. Right. But all the more, and I think, as we've read a number of scriptures, and there's just so much more that we can read that speaks about just loving people and how important it was to God, how important it is to our walk. And that is we're not just saying this loving people who don't believe. This is everyone. This is Christian people as well.
Oh, yes,
people of faith, right? And we're called to love, not just simply because I want to obey this command and be robotic about it, but we're really called to live in peace with everyone, be in unity with people, especially of people of faith, right? And, as I was thinking about this, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, just some things to consider when it comes to challenging personalities or difficult people, however you want to word, or people we're just having a hard time with, is understanding why.
Right.
The why, right? There is usually a why. And we have to recognize that hurt people often hurt others.
All the time. It's an age-old term, but yes.
They say misery likes company.
Yeah, it's just like, no, you're not going to be happy over there. I'm going to
come with my misery.
Right.
Right.
Spray some misery spray on you.
But and you did say that, like, there's something deeper rooted going on there. And sometimes if we just take the time to be like, okay, let me look at this situation differently. They're upset about food, but maybe they're upset about something else.
Right.
And really, doing that. And hopefully you have some sort of relationship to ask those questions and say, hey, like, what's going on?
Right.
I've just noticed this, right?
There's a prayer. I have this prayer book now, which I absolutely love. And one of the prayers is like, God, amplify my senses beyond the 5 that I have naturally. And it's just that's an intense prayer, because you're out here feeling things that it's just like, wait a minute now, that's not me seeing it, that's not me hearing it, that's not me feeling it. It's
Right.
just it's a discerning thing. It's just like, wow, there's sadness in you right now, and I'm not sure what's going on, but but it's just like when you ask God for these things, and he can, I think sometimes he can just drop a what do you call it, like a word of knowledge or something.
Right.
Where you can be like, oh, there's something happening here, that is at play that we need to, I need to give more grace because something else is going on.
Right. And differentiating between toxic behavior and challenging personalities.
That's where that trauma comes in. There's some people who are just born with an attitude, woke up with an attitude. I'm just like, how do you wake up with an attitude? Like, what happened in your dream? But yeah, that you do have these persons who they walk around, unfortunately, with a lot of unhealed trauma, and it's not necessarily an excuse. It's not an excuse, but it's more so maybe an explanation for you. It's just like, oh, you have no concept of what it's like to submit under authority because you've never had to do it. So yes, you're going to walk around with that attitude all day, and people are going to have to be subjected to that. And that's up to the person to figure it out. If it's your place, I would point it out. If it's not your place, you pray for them and keep it moving.
Right.
And
that's the thing. You pray for them and you keep it moving. Not everyone is going to be a friend.
Right.
Not everyone's going to be someone that you may or so mesh with. And like you said, because like I do believe there's a difference between the toxic behavior where you need to sit down and figure this all out.
Right.
Because it's destructive. Versus someone who's just having a challenging time.
Right. Yeah.
So, and just another, understanding just our role of showing grace and empathy towards someone regarding their actions, right? How important it is to have grace. And that's something I'm, really trying to exercise more and more every day of having grace, because I know I'm not always easy to deal with. And I always put into perspective the grace of God that's working in me and the grace that he has towards me, all the more to have it with someone, especially someone that doesn't believe.
Right. Yes. And that too is that you can't match the energy. It's like if you're me saying the word energy, I don't know why I don't like that word. Yeah. But I mean, it is what it is. Energy's been around before these people took it over. But sometimes you'll get into a situation that this person is obviously not a believer, and they'd say things to you, and you have to be the one to almost kind of nullify the issue, as opposed to like, it's like the parent. You have to be the parent to your children. Right. You and them are not on the same, level in that way. And it's just, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you want to throw hands, and it's just like, no, God, there's no throwing hands over here.
No throwing hands.
Right.
And like I mentioned, sometimes, we are the difficult person, and all the more why it's so important. We've talked about this in other podcast episodes, but self-reflection, self-assessment, right?
Knowing who you are.
Always doing that self-check, that, okay, God, is it me? Am I the person causing this? And, but having those moments like, am I being difficult because I'm upset? Because
am I triggered?
Or am I triggered? Right. Yeah, there we go, right? And then learning to accept correction and grow in God's grace. But learning to accept correction, that's so important.
Right.
And oftentimes the Holy Spirit is going to correct us. It's whether or not we're willing to receive it.
All the time.
Yeah.
Like every day. It's just like, oh, could have been kinder there. And I'm like, yes, I could have been.
Right. And then, making rights to our wrongs, right? Going and asking, say, I wasn't my best yesterday. Hopefully we're on, the same page, or we could, just forget about yesterday and just keep it moving forward, right?
Yeah, move on.
And then also important to just ask God to help, be more patient and understanding and loving. And I think that's something that we need to do every single day. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, can you talk to us a little bit about just some practical tips of protect? Because in all of this, right, we are meant to be the bigger. We're Christ followers, so we can't match the world's energy on certain things. So, what are some tips in not matching that energy to protect our mental and emotional and spiritual well-being? While maintaining the love that God put in our hearts.
Okay. I could say to protecting our mental, emotional, respond with kindness. That's important. It's hard. It's not easy, as we mentioned. Easier said than done, but based on all those scriptures we read ahead before, to respond,
read them again.
Right. Respond. Just rewind a little bit. Respond with kindness, with love, and understand that everyone is a work in progress.
Right.
We're all going through our own battles, whether it's something it's outwardly seen, a lot of it's inward, but sometimes you just got to be kind. Yeah. Respond with the kind words. We've said this again, we've said this before, we're saying it again, pray for them. It's hard.
Right, it's very hard.
It's hard, but the more we pray, hopefully the easier it becomes. And hopefully, the attitude will change within the other person. And they have a self-reflection moment, right? Patience, another one, fruit of the Spirit. Right. I be praying the fruit of the Spirit, Lord, love, joy, peace, every day.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, because it's so important to be patient, because we don't want to, match their energy. We don't want to respond with a harsh word, which is only going to escalate a situation where it doesn't need to go, right? And speaking the truth in love, correcting with gentleness. Ephesians 4:15 says, instead we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. Right. So we want to be more Christ-like, then let's speak the truth in love. And if it can't be in love, don't speak it.
Right.
If you can't deliver it in love, like you're going to come, oh, you need to did it, and then all these things, then maybe hold off until you can get to a place where it's like, I've just noticed. And, especially when you're in a relationship with someone, you want to go to them in love. They don't want to be attacked, right?
Nobody wants to be attacked. And I even think about the woman at the well, that it would have been very easy for, Jesus to say, well, you're out here in these streets, and be mean about it, or even be condescending about, the lifestyle that, that she was living. And he was firm, but he was kind.
Yeah.
Right. So much so that this person became like an evangelist in her region, just as I know a man, and he saw me, and he was, he didn't rebuke me. He corrected me, but it wasn't in a rebuking type of way. So, we have to kind of do the same thing. It's just like, as if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. Come back around. And when you have the right heart, because that's really what it comes with. Because when you come accusatory, it's really with a prideful heart, and that's not going to solve anything. So when you turn back around, maybe pray about it some more, think about it some more, craft your words a little bit better, and you just realize that now it's a heart of me being concerned about this person, and me not trying to let this person feel small. So it's just like, what heart are you coming with,
Right, I agree. And I think that's so important, right? Jesus doesn't condemn us.
No.
So we don't have the right to condemn anyone. And as you said, like, if we can't approach it in love, then let's just pray for them.
Right.
Pray for them until, okay, now I have the right words to say. Now I can step forth to them and say it so that they receive it, and it doesn't ruin our witness, especially when they're not believers. It doesn't ruin it, right?
It's just like these church people, they just want to, and it's so easy for that to just tumble out of people's mouth, and I mean, there's some bad press with that, and I'll admit that, but I think if when we approach with kindness or lead with kindness, even when we're saying something that is not necessarily what they want to hear, I think they appreciate the heart behind it and the kindness behind it.
Right.
And it will probably, have you put the mirror to yourself, just like, you know what, maybe, and it puts you in more of a self-reflective position when you lead with the kindness.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to remember that we are also we could be that difficult person, right?
Right.
It could be us.
Right.
And how would you want someone to step to you? How would
Right.
you want to be approached about the situation?
Mm-hmm. Right. So sometimes these difficult people are in our families, right? These are
right.
We share blood type.
Right.
Well, we share blood with these people, and we can't necessarily distance the way we want, especially in the beginning of maybe an issue. So how do you propose that we would foster these positive interactions with these difficult people who we have to be near? Like, have you ever had a situation where you've had to?
Well, not naming any names.
Right. Please don't.
No, but I think, all the more when it's family everything still applies, right? To still pray, to still approach in kindness, give grace, especially if they're unsafe family members, because their awareness is not the same as it might be for you who is a believer.
Right.
But I would say communicate, open and honestly about how that situation or how they're acting is making you feel or making myself feel, express calmly,
right.
Listen to their perspective, because, what we always hear, miscommunication leads to complications. And it could just have been something that was miscommunicated and it just over escalated to a place it didn't have to get to. But I do believe that, it's important to communicate how you feel,
right?
Especially with family, because, oftentimes you can't just get rid of them.
No, right.
Your family, right? So, acknowledge and appreciate their positive behavior. So that comes through positive reinforcement and say, I really like when you do this, or I really like when you are like this, or I don't know, however you want to say, but just reinforcing their good actions and encourage more of that in ways that they can improve.
Right.
So that the relationship between you and them is better or gets better. And, once again, that F word, forgiveness.
The F word, man.
That F word, that big old F word, forgiveness. But we have to forgive. We are called to forgive. Oftentimes when I'm having a hard time, I'm like, hey, God, you forgave me of X, Y, Z while I was still a sinner. All these things you've forgiven me for, and I'm holding on to this one little thing. And I don't want this one little thing to be the reason why I'm not progressing or getting to where I need to be simply because of this. We talked about in the last season. Forgiveness is freedom, y'all. Make sure you turn into that episode.
Right. Yes,
I don't know if
please.
it's called that, but we did an episode on forgiveness. But forgiveness is freedom, and you don't want to carry the weight of that.
Exactly. And I'll add to it, set healthy boundaries for everybody involved. Because I think when it's family, it's a lot different. As you said, I can't just stop talking to you, especially if it's like a sibling. You could, and some people do. But there have been situations where I've needed to have space because I recognize that nothing is getting solved. And maybe I need a moment to change my heart, to understand why I'm so affected by whatever it is that you are doing or have done. And maybe even doing some internal work in order to love you in the way that God wants me to love you.
Right.
So sometimes the space is necessary. Sometimes when we're having conversations, we can't talk about this topic or we can't go into this territory. Just setting those boundaries, because I think that the goal ultimately is that you have forgiveness in your heart, and then you can live together in a way that I think pleases God. Right. So we've said a lot today.
We've said a lot.
And hopefully, our listeners will just understand that dealing with difficult people, it's a journey, right? It's definitely a journey, and it requires effort. It requires compassion. It requires intentionality and a lot of patience. But with the right approach, and of course, with the help of God, it is possible to build meaningful connections even with the most challenging people. And we hope that's what you take from it today is understanding that we are living in a very flawed world, and everybody is flawed naturally because, of course, we're all, you know, sinful people. But God gives us a way out. God redeems us in a lot of ways. And we just hope that you can take what we said today and apply it to your lives if necessary and be that voice of reason when, things are really hard. So if you have any questions about that, or if you have any situations that you're going through with family members, with friends, with whoever, send us an email. Let us know. Maybe we can help you out, give you some counsel about it, or give our 2 cents. And we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at sis.you-can-do-this@gmail.com. Of course, you can talk to us through Instagram. You can send us a DM at sis-you-can-do-this. And don't forget, of course, to rate, to subscribe, to share the podcast, and of course, leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. So until the next time, thank you for tuning in.
And remember, sis, you can do this.